The xenomorph, infamously dubbed the perfect organism, is a creature designed for one purpose: survival through domination. Efficient, adaptable, and relentless, it combines insect-like social structures with reptilian ferocity and biomechanical precision. On its own, it is a nightmare. In numbers, however, it becomes a biological empire that could ravage entire ecosystems. But how would such a species fare in the Jurassic period? A world ruled by towering creatures of all shapes and sizes. Could a species built for population takeover carve out a niche in an ecosystem so alien from its usual domain? With no human hosts to aid it, no modern prey to infect, and no spacecraft corridors to haunt, the xenomorph is forced to rely on its most terrifying trait: its ability to adapt. This speculative survival scenario will place the xenomorph in the context of prehistoric Earth, stripped of a sci-fi environment and placed in the raw wilderness of the Jurassic. The question becomes simple: when a perfect organism meets the ultimate survivors, who really owns the ecosystem? G'day everybody, I'm your host, hope you're doing well. With the release of Alien Earth, I thought it to be no better time to throw the xenomorph back into our prehistoric past to figure out how well it would perform. As how we normally do these episodes, we have 3 categories to score, this being environmental suitability, diet, and resistance to threats and competition. These are all scored out of 10 before being combined for a total ultimate survival score. We also have some speculative evolution, so make sure to stick around, enjoy, subscribe, and let us jump into it. Engineered or evolved for reproduction and survival, the xenomorph operates as both a solitary nightmare and a hive-based species, depending on its stage of expansion. It is often described as a perfect organism due to its rapid life cycle, environmental adaptability, and lack of morality, as well as hesitation when it comes to taking down prey. This makes it the ideal subject for a hypothetical survival scenario. Think about it, what could possibly be more interesting? Adult drone xenomorphs stand approximately 2.2 meters or 7.2 feet tall in a bipedal posture, with lengths exceeding 2.5 meters or 8 feet including the tail. They weigh an estimated 150 to 180 kilograms or 330 to 400 pounds. Meanwhile, there is also the xenomorph queen. That is the one that more often than not takes charge of the hive. These queens can reach up to 4.5 meters or 15 feet tall, and for weight I see as little as 3 to as large as 10 tons. Potato potato at that point. Classic fictional discrepancies. The queens are the ones that allow the hive to grow through production of ovomorphs or facehugger eggs. Their bodies are covered in a dark biomechanical exoskeleton composed of a durable chitinous material that offers high resistance to impact, temperature extremes, and weaponry. A distinct elongated smooth cranial dome houses a secondary retractable inner jaw, used for puncturing prey with deadly force, being capable of piercing through armor, bone, and even metal. Xenomorphs exhibit both bipedal and quadrupedal locomotion and cling to walls and ceilings with ease, aided by powerful musculature and prehensile tail control. Arguably the most famous trait has to be the fact that they possess acidic blood. This blood is able to melt through practically everything from opponents to armor to even spacecrafts. Despite lacking visible eyes, the xenomorph displays extraordinary spatial awareness and tracking ability. Its precise sensory system remains speculative, with many theories existing such as xenomorphs utilizing echolocation and electromagnetic field sensitivity to locate targets. However, we do know at the very least they are sensitive to movement and smell. They are capable of rapid silent movement through complex terrain, showing proficiency in stalking, ambushing, and direct engagement. A speed often seeing them being placed at is around 40 km an hour or 25 miles per hour, but again, depending on its host, that can change. Their strength far exceeds that of human-sized organisms, allowing them to overpower larger prey and manipulate heavy environmental objects with ease. The xenomorph's reproductive cycle begins with an egg containing a facehugger, a spider-like organism whose sole purpose is to implant an embryo into a living host. The embryo, known as a chest burster, gestates rapidly, emerging violently before maturing into an adult xenomorph within a short period of time. The host organism's DNA plays a crucial role in shaping the final form of the xenomorph, leading to a wide range of morphologies depending on the host species. This genetic adaptability allows the species to evolve in real time, adapting to new ecosystems and prey types with alarming efficiency. These creatures operate within a eusocial hierarchy when forming hives. The queen rules under the varying castes. Drones construct the hive and maintain the structure, warriors are more heavily armored, serving to protect, and occasionally specialized castes such as Praetorians protect the queen and serve as potential successors. The communication between the hive seems to be pheromonal and possibly even telepathic, allowing for coordinated hive-minded behavior. Despite their pure brutalness, xenomorphs display a disturbing blend of instinctual aggression and learned intelligence. They are not just mindless beasts, but rather tactical predators that are capable of exploiting weaknesses, setting ambushes, and adapting strategies based on the environmental feedback. Their actions are often directly tied to survival, propagation, or hive defense. Their behavior is shaped by the presence of a queen or, in her absence, a collective drive to create one. Their problem-solving ability and environmental adaptability allows them to rival even tool-using species. I mean, come on, in the movies they purposely took each other out so the acidic blood would allow them to break from their containment. The xenomorph species also have a wide range of experience dealing with threats on their own planet, to the engineers, to the marines, and even Yautjas, better known as predators. So if they deal with all this and they're still kicking, then you know that this video will be interesting. So with all that being said, how will they perform in the Jurassic, more specifically the Morrison Formation? Will these extraterrestrial threats overtake prehistory, or would Earth's native creatures be able to drive back these invaders? Well, it's time for us to find out. The Morrison Formation was a semi-arid floodplain marked by strong seasonal shifts, alternating between wet monsoon phases and prolonged droughts. As with many ecosystems, the terrain was rather varied, with rivers, swamps, and lakes being all interspersed with the different types of forests, savannas, and ridges which were around. Such a patchwork landscape offered both advantages and challenges. Dense forests and swamps would provide ideal cover for hives and ambush hunting, while the exposed plains would limit opportunities for concealment. I mean, during the daytime they would stick out like a sore thumb. The vegetation was dominated by conifers, cycads, and ginkgos, with thick ferns coating some of the wetter ground. For xenomorphs, these environmental extremes would be more than tolerable. Their heat and dry resistant physiology would allow them to persist during dry seasons, while their hive building instincts would form the rest. The Morrison's climate and terrain would not stop their establishment, but it would rather favour hybrid xenomorphs adapted to both forested lowlands and exposed plains. Let's be honest, if they're able to survive in the vacuum of space, a warm day is not going to do anything to them. This would be like a resort. The xenomorphs are receiving a 10 out of 10 when it comes to environmental suitability. I mean, we have also seen them literally survive on planets covered in ice, so again, this would be more than okay for them. Now, the Morrison Formation supported one of the most diverse and abundant assemblages of herbivorous dinosaurs known from the Mesozoic, making it an ecosystem exceptionally rich when it came to potential hosts and prey. And yes, while not depicted all the time, xenomorphs do indeed eat. Dominating the land were the sauropods, immense long-necked herbivores that would have likely formed large migratory herds across the terrain. Apatosaurus is one of the best known species, reaching lengths of 20 meters or 65 feet and weighing in at an estimated 20 tons. Close to it in size was Diplodocus, which grew even larger, extending to 24 to 26 meters or 79 to 85 feet, though it likely held a lighter frame, being estimated at around 10 to 15 tons. Camarasaurus, in contrast, was more of a robust and smaller sauropod, averaging 15 meters or 49 feet in length and weighing in at around 10 to 24 tons, with Gregory S. Paul believing it likely reached the heavier end of the spectrum. This sauropod would have likely browsed at mid-heights where its shorter neck gave an advantage. Towering above a majority of the sauropods was Brachiosaurus, this being one of the largest known dinosaurs from the Morrison Formation. Estimates of its size place it at around 25 meters or 82 feet in length, 12 to 13 meters or 40 to 43 feet in height, and body masses exceeding 40 tons. These sauropods constituted the ecological backbone of the Morrison Formation, grazing on any vegetation they could reach, likely reshaping the landscape as they moved across. Now, those were just some of the sauropods of the region, with there being countless more. But sorry to the rest of them, it would just take too long to name them all, but just know there were a lot of sauropods in this region. Still complementing these giants were the stegosaurids, medium-sized herbivores that filled a distinct ecological niche. The iconic stegosaurus that we all know and love measured around 9 meters or 29.5 feet in length and weighed in at around 3 to 4 tons. With its double row of plates and dagger miser adapted for display and defense, it was a force to be reckoned with. There was also Alcavosaurus, which was likely slightly larger at around 5 tons in weight. It had a similar build, defense, and display system as the Stegosaurus. This group likely browsed at low feeding heights on the account that they did not have a long neck. Ornithopods also added a layer of diversity to this herbivore guild. Camptosaurus and Dryosaurus were relatively lightweight, quick bipeds, which weighed in at 1 ton and 100 kilograms respectively. Facing against something like the xenomorph, they would surely have to rely on their speed and agility to avoid getting caught. If these suckers get taken by surprise, then they lack the raw power to defend themselves. Together, these species created a layered ecosystem of feeding strategies. Colossal sauropods reshaped the terrain, stegosaurs and mid-sized sauropods dominating the understory, and nimble ornithopods exploiting ground-level vegetation. The sheer diversity of herbivores in both size and abundance is just fantastic and makes the Morrison Formation one of the best formations around. However, it also acts as an immense range of potential biomass and host variety for any xenomorph within this system. With this, I believe that the xenomorphs earn a dietary score of 8 out of 10. With their pure numbers and physicality, they could overwhelm a number of potential prey options. However, the reason they lose out on a few points is that I still have to account on the individual xenomorph. And if we are being real, while xenomorphs are tough, they aren't invulnerable. These titanic herbivores, which weigh over 20 tons, would be more than capable of bringing down a few xenomorphs with them. Now we move on to competition and threats. Although the Morrison Formation was packed in with a lot of herbivores, it also hosted some of the most famous theropods of all time. The most abundant of these theropods was Allosaurus fragilis, one of the top predators of this ecosystem. Averaging at around 8.5 meters or 28 feet in length and weighing in at around 1.7 to 2.7 tons, it combines speed and power into a highly adaptable hunting machine. Its interior bite force has been measured around 4,400 newtons and its posterior bite force being around 9,389 newtons. While modest to Tyrannosaurid standards, their highly serrated teeth were ideal for slashing apart prey. With strong forelimbs tipped with large claws, Allosaurus fragilis packed a solid amount of weaponry into one body. In contrast, Allosaurus anax reached up to 12.1 meters or 40 feet in length and weighed in at around 3.8 to 6.5 tons. This made it who am I kidding? This made it more than likely the heaviest Morrison predator, a true apex rival to any theropod it shared territory with, an actual titan of the Jurassic. But let us just take a moment for the OG Saurophaganax. They will be missed. Anyways, another giant was Torvosaurus, a megalosaurid considered among the largest carnivores of its time. Measuring 9 to 11 meters or 30 to 36 feet and weighing in at around 2 to 5.2 tons, it was slower but more powerful than a majority of other predators in the region. With a deep skull and fewer but larger teeth, Torvosaurus likely specialized in taking down larger prey options, being a side-by-side competitor with the allosaurs within the region. We also cannot forget about the smaller but still sort of formidable Ceratosaurus. At 6 meters or 20 feet in length and 0.4 to 1 ton in weight, it was more versatile than its larger contemporaries. Its elongated body and powerful tail suggested it might have hunted along rivers and floodplains, exploiting niche, less accessible prey to the bigger theropods. These predators created a crowded and deadly group. Any new invading predator like the xenomorph would be forced to contend within a landscape already stacked with lethal competition. The difference is that the xenomorph doesn't need to outmuscle these dinosaurs. They just have to build their population to outnumber them and outlast them. Acid blood makes taking out the xenomorphs costly, even for a giant predator. Meanwhile, hive tactics allow them to overwhelm opponents that rely on brute strength or ambush alone. In a prolonged conflict, even apex Jurassic theropods would quickly learn that a price of taking down a xenomorph is often their own life. When it comes to xenomorphs' resistance to competition and threat score, I think that they earn a solid 9 out of 10. The thing is, the Morrison carnivores were powerful and could certainly take down the drones, but the xenomorphs' hive numbers, adaptability, pure aggression, and acid defense system gives them a dangerous edge over even the mightiest Jurassic predators. Plus, the queen xenomorph would be more than capable of overwhelming even the largest theropods here. Now we go on to a majority of you watchers' favourite parts, this being the speculative evolution. With the wealth of dinosaur diversity in the Morrison Formation, the xenomorph's ability to assimilate host DNA opens the door for some terrifying variants imaginable. The facehugger, ever opportunistic, does not discriminate between prey sizes, and given the abundance of massive dinosaurs in this environment, would be unlike anything seen in the alien mythos. Now we are going to go through 3 likely morphs, each reflecting the biology of its host species and the nightmare efficiency of the xenomorph genome. The first and most obvious category would be the theropod variants, being produced from the predators which ruled the lands. This would include our allosaurs, torvosaurs, and ceratosaurs. These hybrids, scientifically named as Intervis civis dominator, but often referred to as the slasher class, would combine the speed and power of their host with the resilience of the xenomorph. Now, depending on their host, there would be quite a range to their size. Their length could be anywhere from 7 to 13 meters or 23 to 42 feet, and their weight could clock in at anywhere from 0.6 to 7 tons. They would be towering skeletal figures with an especially elongated cranial dome. Unlike smaller drones, these slashers would rely less on stealth and more so on raw predatory dominance, acting as a shock troop or even Praetorian-like enforcer within the hive hierarchy. These creatures would be incredibly aggressive to the native fauna, and out of all the classes would have the highest dietary intake. Their long tails blended with biomechanical ridges would serve as balancing weapons capable of piercing prey, while their height and aggression would make them among the most fearsome battlefield predators of the Jurassic. In contrast, the infection of a stegosaurid, such as Stegosaurus or Alcavosaurus, would give rise to Internis civis Platinocrista. more commonly referred to as the splitter. These hybrids would retain the low, heavily built body postures of their herbivorous hosts, their dorsal plates reshaped into jagged biomechanical spines fused into armoured ridges. Measuring 8 to 10 meters or 26 to 33 feet in length and weighing in at around 5 tons, splitters would be the siege units of the hive, slow but terrifyingly durable. Their tail would remain their signature weapon. These would be capable of smashing through bone, armor, or even the carapace of rival hives. While less agile than their theropod cousins, splitters would excel in defense and territory control, anchoring hive perimeters and acting as living boom gates against intrusion. The most extreme form would arise from the infection of a sauropod. Giants such as Diplodocus, Camarasaurus, or even the mighty Brachiosaurus. These titanic morphs, tentatively described as Internocivus colossus, and given the casual name Titan. They would stand among the largest xenomorphs ever conceived, ranging from 20 to 30 meters or 65 to 98 feet in length and weighing in at around 10 to 60 tons. These titans would be biomechanical fortresses armored from skull to tail with blackened plating and acid seeping seams. Their immense whip-like tails would be repurposed into devastating siege weapons, while their massive size alone would scatter herds and dwarf even the largest native predators. They would be so large they could effectively store live facehuggers within and around their body, allowing these facehuggers to leap onto a target once close enough to the potential host. Unlike the faster slashers or even the defensive splitters, titans would act as living engines of destruction, rare but devastating with a very unique role. Their role would be to traverse to unclaimed regions and to expand the xenomorph population. However, due to their size and rarity, this group has a tendency to depart from the hive in order to create their own, with the possibility of turning into queen titans. Their immense metabolic requirements might limit their numbers, but a single titan would reshape the balancing power wherever it roamed. So these speculative morphs are meant to illustrate just how quickly the xenomorph species could warp the Morrison ecosystem. By fusing their biology with that of dinosaurs, the hive would generate not only warriors, but entire castes specialized for specific roles. This would ensure that there is no corner of the Jurassic that is beyond their reach. So with all that being said, I think it's time to get into their ultimate survival. Again, if you've enjoyed so far, make sure to like and subscribe, and time for our final portion. The introduction of the xenomorph into the Morrison formation would not be as simple as adding another predator to the late Jurassic. Instead, it would be more akin to unleashing an invasive force designed to consume and dominate. Unlike the native theropods that balance their survival against the availability of prey, the xenomorph operates with an entirely different strategy: relentless expansion for the hive. Now, we won't go too extreme with the xenomorph typing. We will keep it to the classic hives consisting of a single queen and her drones. Otherwise, if we incorporated everything else, the video would get convoluted very quickly. Their first step would be to establish a hive in the sheltered floodplains or along a river-cut cave. This provides protection from droughts and especially wildfires. From there, the colony would spread outward in its survival, not tied to a territory in the traditional sense, but to the availability of living hosts. Herbivores would serve as the foundation for this takeover. Sauropods, though massive and dangerous, would eventually fall victim to ambushes or become infected within their herds. Although these sauropods would do their best to stomp on or fling groups of these drones away, they would either tire from relentless numbers or drop as a result of being in contact with too much acidic blood. This would provide a cheeky facehugger the opportunity to strike. A single chestburster from a Brachiosaurus or other large sauropod would result in towering morphs of terrifying scale, shifting the balance of power entirely and for good. It would give rise to the Colossus species. Smaller herbivores like Camptosaurus or Dryosaurus would be picked off either as food or hosts, allowing for rapid population growth. However, they wouldn't provide anything special, more drone-like xenomorphs. Even the heavily armored Stegosaurs would not be immune. The acid blood would negate their defenses, and skewering a xenomorph would cause them to have their tail completely melted off. The hive's persistence would ensure eventual takeover. This would allow for Platinocrista to be the bruiser among the hive. With every successful implantation, the xenomorphs would turn the dinosaurs' sheer abundance into a weapon for their own proliferation. Competition with the Jurassic carnivores would be equally one-sided over time. Allosaurs, Torposaurs, and Ceratosaurs would certainly take alone drones, but they would suffer catastrophic costs in doing so. Acid blood would cripple, scar, or outright put these native dinosaurs down for good. However, this group would give rise to the Dominator species, which would truly cause some ecological ecological issues as a result of their size and speed. At least with the sauropod xenomorphs, they could see them coming. With something based off the theropod, they would still be large enough to take down a majority of species, but they would be fast enough to catch up to them as well. The larger carnivores such as Allosaurus and Nax and Torvosaurus would be the only theropods capable of competing with the xenomorphs. Though unlike the xenomorphs, the native theropods care about their self-preservation and don't repopulate nearly as quickly. Unlike the dinosaurs which evolved to compete through strength, speed or niche partitioning, the xenomorph introduces an entirely alien playbook, coordinated eusocial hive tactics, genetic takeover, and a lack of fear or self-preservation. This edge would steadily erode the dominance of even the most formidable Morrison creatures. The ultimate limit to their success would not be their competition, but the ecosystem's carrying capacity. The Morrison formation was rich in herbivorous biomass, but the xenomorph's exponential growth could in time deplete host populations and destabilize the ecosystem. However, given the sheer scale of dinosaurs, this would likely take a long time, and even then they could just expand out of the area. By that point, the Morrison would be entirely unrecognizable, its forests now hollowed by parasitic expansion, and its dinosaurs transformed into nightmarish hybrids. I truly think the biggest issue for the xenomorphs once they take over would be each other. I feel like the dinosaur xenomorph classes would break off from the original hives and possibly even go to war. So, in the end, the xenomorph earns an ultimate survival score of 27 out of 30. These aliens would not merely survive, but rather thrive to the point of ecological dominance. With the endless hosts, limited environmental vulnerabilities, and unmatched adaptability, they would rather easily rewrite the food web of the Jurassic. Their only eventual opponent would be the consequences of their own success. In the end, the Jurassic may have belonged to giants, but once the hive takes root, the world belongs to the xenomorph. And with that, we've reached the end of the video, and as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you enjoyed this, then you likely enjoy aliens, dinosaurs, and hybrids. So if you haven't already, make sure to check out my Hybrid vs Aliens collaboration with Vivid and Madly. And shout out to Allo Arts, his link will be in the description below, and he's the one responsible for bringing these xenomorph variants to life. I'll catch you all in the next video, see ya.